There we go. I can hear you. Perfect.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, pretty good. Thanks for asking. Finally, we could
Good.
actually do the interview.
Yeah.
Shall we begin? Or
Yeah.
okay, cool. Teacher Grace, speaking of motivation, how can we motivate language learners?
Well, I think it's important as a teacher to be a motivating role.
Mhm,
Absolutely. But at the same time, I understand that I cannot be the only motivation for my students. So I think it's important to encourage students to find materials and ways of learning that they like, so that what they learn in the classroom, they then take outside of the classroom and they can use. Well, they need to be their own motivation as well. So I can't be the 100% motivation for a student. But I can give tools and I can show them how to motivate themselves.
mhm. Brilliant, brilliant. And the question is, what is the difference between young learners and adults?
Well, between young learners and adults, I think can be a question of enthusiasm. I
Possible.
think kids are naturally more energetic, um, they're more open, whereas the thing is with adults, they can come with their own judgments. So they might not be as open to learn,
Mhm,
from my experience.
I see. Mhm. Okay, what about kids or let's say teenagers?
Teenagers can be difficult,
Absolutely.
because they kind of have this attitude. They have this attitude of, oh, I'm so cool,
Mhm,
I don't need to be here. So I think as a teacher you really need to find things that they are going to enjoy. So movies, songs, music, English that they would listen to on a daily basis anyway.
I see. Cool. And this is very interesting question because I witnessed lots of students who are actually coming to me and complaining about the material, that this and that. And so the question is, what are the probable problems of students while they are studying or let's say learning? What sort of, let's say, complaints that students might have, let's say.
I think, well, the obvious complaints would be grammar. I think grammar is always the biggest complaint of students, and that it doesn't matter what nationality, what language the student speaks, there will always be some kind of difficulty there. Especially if they're trying to translate, their own language into English or English into their own language, because
Mhm.
there won't always be a direct translation. Yeah.
I see. Very nice. Uh, yeah, grammar is really a headache for both teachers and also, students because, yeah,
You can say that again.
yeah. Actually, the question is, what sort of material would you recommend them, let's say, students, to use, like books, apps, websites, uh, yeah, so forth?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to find material that you would enjoy to listen to. So not sorry, enjoy listening to. So I mean, if you're trying to read a book about a topic that you don't enjoy only for the fact that it is in English,
Mhm.
then there's no point. There really is no point, in my opinion. So, for example, if you're a person who likes reading, I really recommend graded readers. So, books that are graded to specific levels. Um, and also podcasts. I'm also a language learner myself, and listening to podcasts and finding podcasts that I enjoy listening to has been a really important part of my own language journey,
Mhm.
which is why it's something that I always recommend to my students. It's really important to have extra listening material, um, because it really helps you improve your speaking. Listening improves speaking, reading improves writing.
Exactly.
Um, but it's important that you find material that you enjoy.
Definitely. Definitely correct. Um, Very cliche question again. Grammar or vocabulary? Which one is important and why? And also, how can learners improve their both grammar and vocabulary?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking about this with another teacher earlier, and I it's kind of sad, I think, that a lot of students get really upset about grammar because they get so frustrated, they find it very difficult, and they think that they need to have perfect grammar to speak, which just isn't true in my opinion.
I see.
So I actually think vocabulary is more important, um, because, for example, I can tell you happy. Is it necessary for me to say I am happy? No, you still understand what I mean just from the vocabulary.
Exactly.
Grammar gives structure to a sentence,
Mhm.
but vocabulary brings meaning.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So how can learners actually improve their vocabulary, let's say? What are different
So,
tools or ways or methods that you personally recommend them to actually apply while they are
yeah.
studying or, let's say, learning?
So, kind of linking with my points about using graded readers, listening to podcasts, I think it's really important to learn in context. I don't think there's any point in getting a list of words, or a grammar explanation and then trying to understand just from that list or just from that explanation. So when you're reading, pay attention to the words and try and understand the words in the context. So don't come to a word and say, oh, I don't know this word, so I'm going to go on Google Translate straight away. No,
Exactly.
read the whole sentence and see if you can understand that word in the context. And then you're more likely to remember that word in the future. And it's the same for podcasts. When I recommend listening to podcasts, I recommend listening to podcasts not once, but repetitively. So finding something that is a good enough length that you can listen to again. And this repetition is really important for retaining vocabulary. Um, they say you need to be exposed to a new word at least 20 times for that word to become part of your vocabulary. So when you learn that and you see that in a new context, you'll remember it more, and then you'll notice it again when you come to it again, and then eventually you'll notice that that word becomes part of your vocabulary. It's the same with grammar, really.
Very cool, actually. Fantastic. Um, okay, I have to skip this question because you're obviously a native speaker. But if I ask you, how did you personally learn? What would your answer be?
Well, it's interesting because in a way, it's an interesting question, even as a native speaker, because people always talk about the way I speak.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the way I speak is kind of unusual for the area where I'm from,
Why?
because I speak with a very standard British accent.
Exactly,
Why?
yes.
It's a good question. Yeah, I learned, I guess I speak in this way because my grandma spoke in this way. And when I was younger, me and my grandma would read books together. So I think reading out loud really gave me this accent that I speak with, which is not a hard regional accent. So reading out loud could really help you with your pronunciation.
Mhm. So which part of UK you are from? Are you from actually?
The West, I'm from the West Midlands. which is, I'm from a tiny, tiny town,
I see.
and it's in between Birmingham and Wales.
I see. Cool.
Yeah. But everyone always assumes I'm from London.
I see. Interesting. Actually, the question is it possible to learn multiple languages at the same time? And would you recommend that?
Have you ever tried learning multiple languages at the same time, Mason?
Of course, of course.
You have.
Yeah.
Um, and what was your experience like?
My experience was cool. I mean, of course, the languages are different. I always say if you want to learn a new language, learn the culture. Culture really helps you to learn it fast because you don't need to learn everything. Because I think people need to know what to say in that specific condition or situation. So that is what I call as cultural approach. So I try to learn. I'm Iranian, but I live in Turkey, Istanbul, and I know how to speak Turkish, of course. But I focused on Turkish culture rather than as you said memorizing vocabulary, or let's say just being so strict on to have a good grammar or etc. But instead, I personally tried to focus on the cultural aspect of the language. So when I speak, people say, are you Turkish? And I say, no, I am not Turkish. And they say, how does it possible? I say, I don't know. It is possible, for example.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that's cool. I I have tried learning two languages at the same time. I am learning Spanish, and I started learning Chinese because I was going to move to China
Hmm.
before all of this coronavirus
Oh my
situation
God.
happened.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's possible, but I think it's possible to learn two languages that are completely different.
Hmm.
So Chinese and Spanish, they have nothing in common. But if I wanted to learn Italian, for example, I would have a lot of trouble because they're very similar
I
and I
see.
would get confused. So it's possible to learn two languages, absolutely, but choose two languages that are very different. And also, you need time.
Hmm.
You need to give yourself time, and you need to give yourself a proper structure if you're going to do it. So, you say, today I'm going to learn 30 minutes of French. And then after that, I will do 1 hour of German, for example.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. In that case, if you say that is possible, then yeah. Actually, it says here, how can learners improve their speaking abilities? Very cliche question. I'm sure that you have been fed up with this question.
Absolutely. I am actually quite sick of this
I know, I
question.
know.
Um, how to improve speaking? The best analogy I can give is how, what do you expect when a piano player, if you ask a piano player, how did you get good at playing the piano? What's the answer? Playing the piano.
Exactly.
So, how do you get good at speaking?
Obviously,
Speaking. Yeah.
speaking. Yeah. Hmm.
But a lot of people get confused about this. They think there's like a magic
Yeah.
secret sometimes that,
Unfortunately.
they can plug something into their brain which is going to make them a fluent speaker in 3 months. But it's not true. You
Yeah.
just need to keep practicing with a teacher, with language partners. But the important thing is that you're consistent.
Exactly. Exactly. There shouldn't be any gap, you know, or uh, disconnection.
Yeah.
Next question is accent and also pronunciation. Of course, they are different. I mean, what do you think about this? Which one is important? Uh, and I mean, I receive this question a
Yeah.
lot, like American English, British English. So, what do you think about these questions?
Um, Pronunciation is important,
Mhm.
but I, you know what really makes me sad? I really feel sad when a student comes to me and they say, "Oh, I want to sound British." I say, "Why? You're not British. Why are you worried about sounding like a native speaker when you're not a native speaker?"
Yeah.
So, there are ways you can do it, obviously, and if it's important to you, then go ahead, but it's not something I encourage. I think there are more important things to learning a language rather than worrying about whether people think you're British. I mean, what do you want? Do you want someone to say, "Oh, I think you're American," or "Oh, I think you're British"? If that's your goal, then that's the wrong reason.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Yeah, very, very cool answer, actually. You're right, definitely. Why should we actually hide our identity, right? There's no reason.
Exactly. This is the sad thing. Yeah. That's why it makes me sad. But I actually had one of my students. She said, "Well, you don't understand because you're you're not in my position. You're not the outsider when you go to the country." And I understand that, and I understand that feeling. Well, I don't understand it because I'm not in that position. But at the same time, it makes me sad that that is an issue.
Interesting. Yeah, different stories, different people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, they say that, teacher, is it possible to learn English without going abroad?
Yes, 100%. 100%. I have my most advanced student who is C2 level. She's done the CPE, she's done all of this, and she's never been to a native speaking country. It's 100% possible. You just need to, you can immerse yourself. What you need to do is you need to find a way of immersing yourself, and you don't necessarily need to go to a country to do this. So if you like exercising, when you're exercising, make the music that you listen to English. When you're walking, and if you like listening to podcasts, make the podcast that you listen to English. You make all of the media and the content that you consume one language. Turn your phone into English.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, it's absolutely possible.
Mhm. Exactly, definitely correct. And okay, how long will it take for a person to really learn, let's say, every necessary element of language to speak properly or to have a reasonable speaking ability? How long will it take, you think?
Um, how long is a piece of string? Uh, I think it really depends on the person. I I I don't like to give a time period because it really depends on how much time you have to dedicate to learning, um, what kind of things you're doing to improve your learning. But for me, it's really frustrating when someone comes to me and they say, "Oh, I want to be fluent in 3 months." I said, "Well, I can't do that for you. You can only do that for yourself, and 3 months is kind of unrealistic."
Yes,
So you just need to be patient and understand that it's a long process.
absolutely. Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. And final question is technology and education. Do you think that we can integrate technology in or into education? Do you actually, how can I say, support this idea? What do you think about it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big fan of using technology. If I'm teaching in a classroom, I always use technology. Um, I love to create PowerPoint presentations and show these to my students. Also, these are really interactive games, like Kahoot and
Yes.
Quizlet and lyrics training. I always use when I'm in a classroom.
Yeah.
Now that I'm teaching online, obviously I rely on technology. So 100%. Technology, education, they go together, and that is the future
They
of
have to go
education.
together, actually.
Yeah,
There's no other choice. They have to.
yeah.
Exactly. Very good. So, yeah, thank you very much for
Thank
accepting
you.
my, invitation for being interviewed. It was
Thank
really
you for inviting.
lovely.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, so let's say goodbye to our audience.
Okay, well, bye guys.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
very much for watching.
Take care of yourself. Bye bye.
Thanks, Mason. Take care. Have a good
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. Likewise. Bye bye.